Welcome to Worldview Matters, discussing controversial issues, discerning current events, defending biblical Christianity. No topic off limits. And now, here's your host, David Fiorazzo.
As you know as pastors, that Christ has his followers, his disciples, his people that are accomplishing his purposes here on this earth. But Satan also has his disciples. And communist, Marxist, those are his disciples. They are adamantly and with a righteous and a religious fervor that's hard to comprehend, trying to accomplish his purposes. And we see by all the things they're trying to accomplish that they are not stopping until everything God designed to be a certain way has been turned on its head. That's what this is. That's all this is about. It is what Ephesians 6 talks about. It is a spiritual battle against wickedness and Satan. It's not naive, misguided people that don't have a clue. It's people that are committed to their commander-in-chief, and they do exactly as they are told.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The reason we are losing this, and I'll talk more at the end about this, is because we aren't near as committed as they are.
We are not near as committed as they are. And we're going to talk with Curtis Bowers, filmmaker, author, former Idaho legislator, in just a minute. I'll introduce him. But first, I want to say thank you for watching and sharing and supporting Worldview Matters, because as you can see with this cake here in front of us, we are celebrating the 100th episode. And I mean, wow, all the great guests we've had. It's just been amazing. So I wanted to thank you guys so very much. And I could go down the list, and I have announced different states, different people that have sent in donations from across the country. God bless you. Thank you. You're part of this battle that we are in, a fight for our freedom and the biblical worldview. But I also want to thank the staff behind the scenes that we don't see or talk about. And I just want to thank personally Dan, Mike Menzel, one of the producers, Jeff, the producer, also Katie and Nikayla. God bless you guys. They work with excellence as unto the Lord. And I believe Worldview Matters is growing in part because of the quality that is put into it. So guys, thank you who are viewing. Thank you guys, everybody that's involved. And I want to bring in Curtis Bowers now and his very first film, Agenda, the documentary Grinding America Down. We're going to talk a little bit about that. You can't not talk about it because a lot of people are still learning about some of the content, the Marxist revolution in America, cultural Marxism, communist policy in the United States. So let's bring in Curtis Bowers. Brother, I know you just got off the road. Thank you so much for being on Worldview Matters.
You're welcome, and congratulations on 100th.
Thank you. Thank you. Slow but sure. How many podcasts? You've done so many podcasts too. You're probably you're in the hundreds, I'm guessing, by now, or speeches.
Yeah, I think we are.
So, Curtis, that clip we played to kick off the podcast was from a recent Liberty Pastors Conference. I've been there a couple times, to a couple of them, 2020 and 2021. I was in Dallas, Texas. That's where I met Trevor Loudon, who I first heard of in Agenda documentary. So talk to us a little bit more about what you were sharing about the left being so committed, and I wish the church was as committed to the truth as they are to lies and Marxism. And go ahead and share your thoughts on that.
Well, as I've studied Marxism for decades now, you see from even Marxists back in the 30s, and 40s, and 50s, when they didn't appear to be making much progress, they were still just all in. I remember Whittaker Chambers, who eventually became a Christian and then came over to our side, but he said his wife and him would work for 60, 70 hours a week for free. They'd have another job to pay their bills, and they would work for the cause just because they so believed in this move for world communism. So it's something that as you study and you see their efforts, you realize, man, they have this just religious fervor in them for a lie. And yet we have the truth, and sometimes I'm a little too busy to tell my neighbor about Jesus or stand up for something that's being said that's not true, and I should stand up and tell the alternative side of this, but whatever, I'm kind of busy, and so that's how we've gotten to where we are, specifically the church and pastors dropping the ball starting back in the 1930s, believe in the Humanist Manifesto lie that the church and its message belongs inside the four walls of the church and nowhere else. And back in the 30s, many mainline denominations started saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, pardon me," and they believed the lie that only the religion of humanism was allowed in the world. And so they backed into the church, and the church lost its influence on the culture and on everything going on. And that's what we see then. It was fertile soil then for the Marxists to come in and fill the gap of all the things that the church had been doing very effectively, where they could use those things to get more power and control.
Influence, salt and light. And by the way, second biggest lie in America, the separation of church and state, right? Curtis, you were talking to a room full of pastors at that conference just a week or so ago. And I want you to share, it was surprising to me when you asked how many people have seen the original or the Agenda documentary or the second one, and not many hands went up. To you and I, we're kind of going, wow. But you said something before we got on the podcast that's very interesting. You said it's good that more people are catching on and are trying to learn about this. But share that just must seem odd to you because you've been out there since 2010 or before.
No, that's right. No, I've been traveling actively for the last 14 years all over the country each year with my family, trying to wake up people to understand the purposefulness behind America's fall. And, but yeah, everywhere we've been going the last year or two, unlike years gone by, none of them even have heard of the movie Agenda Grinding America Down. And we had over 25 million people just watched it on the internet years ago, but we had hundreds of thousands of copies of the movies being shown in churches and communities all over this country. Thousands of them each week were being shown for a couple of years. And, but now what I think it is, David, is COVID kind of awakened a whole nother batch of people. It always takes something to finally shake people from their busy life and their slumber of not being, having time for what's important. Oh, I'm too busy with life. And I remember back, the first wave was when Obama was elected president in 2009, when he came into office. All of a sudden, he started to say things about shared prosperity and things that all of a sudden people go, wait a minute, that's socialism. What's going on? And it woke up a whole group of people, and the Tea Party movement started stuff. And then a lot of those people, probably a lot of them have slowly died off, some of the older ones and things. But then I think COVID was another huge wake up call. And I think over the last 4 years ago, it started right now, tens of millions of Americans have awakened, and that's a wonderful thing. We should thank God for that. Yes. He indirectly has answered our prayers. God help us by, okay, I'm going to allow conditions that are going to awaken another 10, 20, 30 million people to realize the narrative is a lie. Yep. The things we've been taught most of our life is a lie. And there is a war going on for our country, because to ever implement a world government, they know America has got to go. You can't have one country up there like the city on a hill and get the rest of the world to buy into the misery of socialism. You got to take them all down. Then, people are like, oh, whatever, all I need is something to eat. They're not worried about the details of things as much as survival, but that's what they've been trying to do. So that's, at that conference, as most of the places I've been recently, no one's hardly heard of it. And as I give a speech on some of these things, they're very sobered by it and very interested in it, which is wonderful. But I can tell, okay, they're finally popping the bubble and coming out and going, oh my goodness, things are different than what I thought they were.
So we're going to talk about PR and propaganda after we take a very brief break. But before we do that, you brought up COVID in 2020. Sometimes I refer to time now BC, before COVID, and after 2020. But there's an article that's relevant because what was going on during that year, not only did our government, and you think of Nazi Germany as chilling, not only did our government deem the church non-essential, but there were lockdowns, power grabs off the charts that we've never seen in American history, and telling businesses how they could run, but they were, of course, keeping the abortion mills open. But there's an article I pulled off from a week or so ago off the Newswire. It says, why America's kids are hip to BLM and LGBT, but are failing ABC and 1-2-3. And it's got a picture of Randy Weingarten, the president of one of the huge teachers unions. And this is on purpose, Curtis Bowers. Unions are an enemy of the people. And this is in February, they celebrated Black Lives Matter Week of Action. That was just a few weeks ago in many public schools. And unions were pushing this. And I just want to get your response to this, because in school, they were celebrating and promoting Black Lives Matter Week of Action, knowing full well, the unions know, most Americans know, Black Lives Matter was started, China backed them. They were started by Marxists. They were trained Marxists. The co-founders admitted that. They were anti-Christian, anti-family, anti-freedom, anti-American, and they're pushing all these things. They're pro-LGBT, pro-trans, and everything else. And this is what they're still pushing in the government-run schools. Your quick thoughts.
Yeah, it was a goal stated clearly in the 1950s. Goal 17 of the Communist Party USA was get control of the schools, use them as transmission belts for socialism, soften the curriculum, and get control of teachers' associations. You have the children, you have everything. And they understand that. We have unfortunately not heeded what the Bible says, in that the blessing of children, the reward of children, and that the hand that rocks the cradle really does rule the world. And that's why every totalitarian has always been after being involved with the curriculum in the schools, so they can raise the next generation to be the people they want them to be, and use them and all the energies of their life to accomplish their goals.
Maybe when we come back from our break, you can share with our audience if you think people are catching on a little too late. But we'll talk about that. Plus, we are going to talk about PR and propaganda. But when we come right back, we've got a lot more coming up on this 100th episode of Worldview Matters with Curtis Bowers.
Today's show is brought to you by Harbinger's Daily, world news biblically understood. Stay informed at harbingersdaily.com.
Friends, if you're listening via audio podcast to our show, please help us out by leaving a 5-star review. It does help the show rise in the rankings. And if you're interested in sponsoring Worldview Matters, send us an email and our producer will get back to you. Go to worldviewmatters.tv. Curtis Bowers, the website is agendaweekly.com. That's agendaweekly.com. You can sign up and get a lot of things in your inbox. Every Saturday, you get all kinds of things behind the scenes. In fact, I'm going to let Curtis share a little bit about that, Agenda Weekly, and what people can sign up for.
Well, we have a kind of a subscription-based following that helps support what we do. It's $5 a month, but we send you an email every Friday evening with kind of a news brief of all the key action items of the week, the key things that happen, then prayer and action items, things to pray about, things to do. And then I make a video on an important topic, something for you to understand, and present that to you as well. But we're just trying to save you time in understanding what's going on so you have more time to act. That's kind of the heart behind what we do. The movies are also available there at agendaweekly.com if you'd like to get a copy.
And people were mentioning, they were asking you, one of the questions you get, where can I get actual news that's not biased? And you put this out. That's one of the other reasons you do this, because you say Agenda Weekly is designed to equip you. Jeff, I just want to pull up the resource page. I put one of those up on my website real quick. 200 resources for Christians, conservatives, where you can get info on culture, Bible prophecy, church worldview, globalism, all kinds of commentary. You can get apologetics and more. But Curtis Bowers, I really like what you shared last year at the Prophecy Conference in Appleton, Wisconsin. We're fortunate to both be able to speak there. And you shared some fascinating information on how this transition has been happening very gradually from PR, which sounds benign, but it's actually propaganda. I don't know if I got that right, but explain and kind of bring our audience up to speed.
Yeah, back as early as the 1930s, the people that were pushing propaganda in our country, which was our government and many of the big businesses and things through their advertisements that weren't true, they realized, okay, propaganda, because of Hitler and different things that have happened in the world, kind of has a bad name. So we're going to rename it public relations. That's and right. A very clever way of propagandizing people back, like, oh, no, this is just our public relations department. But at that talk, what I talked about a little bit in summary was fifth generation warfare. Warfare has gone through many different stages throughout time, starting with first generation warfare, which was like the Civil War, where you just had line and column tactics. People line up, shoot each other, and then you keep going, which wasn't too brilliant in my thinking. But fifth generation warfare, what we're really those that are against us, those that are trying to use the energies of us individually in our country against us, have realized, it's far easier to use propaganda and brainwashing and manipulation to get people to voluntarily do what you want them to do instead of having to force them with guns and things like that. And so they've slowly been perfecting this since the 1930s. How do you manipulate people into just doing it? And Edward Bernays, who wrote the book Propaganda back in the 1920s, he had really discovered through advertising, basically, you can get people to do anything you want them to do as long as you can convince them it's what the experts would recommend for them to do. The people that they admire, maybe they're doctors, maybe movie stars or actors or athletes or whatever, they realize, oh my goodness, people, when they look up to someone, then whatever that person thinks about whatever the subject may be, even if it's a subject they have no expertise in, they listen to them. And so that's when they really started buying up the influencers and to get them to carry their messages and their narrative to the public. And they saw, oh my goodness, it's so effective. Even during World War I and World War II, when Americans really didn't want to go to war because we had just seen enough death, they hired Edward Bernays, and he said, listen, after surveying the American people, I feel that anything you wrap and cloak in patriotism, they will be for. They so love their country, it's crystal clear. So if you're wanting them to go to war, you label that as the most patriotic thing you can do. And anyone that's against the war, they're traitors to the cause. And they found, and it was very effective, and it's manipulated a lot of us that do love America most of our life. And some have awakened now to realize, wait, they're using that against us. Just like they use the idea, Christians are loving and kind and we're supposed to love our neighbor. Well, they know the Bible says that. So they know, okay, how can we cloak things if we're trying to sell it to the Christian community? How can we sell it as this is what Jesus would do? This is, this is biblical. If they don't believe in the Bible, they don't believe in Jesus. But so we're really in a world today that is just constant barrage of half-truths and misinformation, disinformation. They act like we're doing that. They're the ones that are experts in this because they realize if you can control the narrative, you can control most of the people most of the time.
Mm-hmm. And world dictators have known this. They've talked a lot about influencing the youth and controlling the narrative. You mentioned patriotism and how maybe 100 years ago, or maybe even 50 years ago, perhaps, people would have thought of that as a good thing. Well, now isn't it interesting, Curtis Bowers, that they're talking about Christian nationalism in a negative light, derogatory fashion? That's part of this agenda, isn't it? It is to reflect negatively on the biblical worldview and on people that are simply patriotic about America. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think they used patriotism as long as they could when it was in the majority, where most people love their country. But then they realized, hey, our school system's being successful and teaching them to be anti-American, to focus on every mistake America ever made instead of all its successes, or to fabricate things about it that aren't even true to begin with. They realized, okay, now we're turning the tide. We're going to finally come out against patriotism, since we've hated it from the beginning, but we wanted to use it as long as we could to accomplish as much as we could accomplish. Now we're going to go ahead and turn on it, and because we feel we have the youth on our side, and they will continue on this battle to make it just an evil thing to love your country, to be thankful for your history, to be grateful to God for blessing you to be born or raised in this country. So yeah, it's classic Marxist strategy. You use every group of people you can as long as you can to get as much out of them as you can. And then once you're done with them, you throw them under the bus and you move on to the next group to use and manipulate.
We used to laugh, you and I being probably of close to the same age, maybe a couple decades ago, of Jay Leno going out on the street, doing these man on the street interviews, or going to college campuses after a graduation or a high school graduation, asking kids what they knew about their country, what they knew about history. And we used to laugh at this, but it is so sad that history as we know it has been rewritten by the left and by the Marxists and by those who control the textbook publishers and everything else, the teachers unions. And now kids are being put out of this. I think you said something in that Liberty Pastors conference that we just played a clip from, that the system is designed to do exactly what it's doing, putting out social justice activists, anti-American children who are growing up to be very effective on college campuses, anti-Christian, anti-Israel. So go ahead and share about that.
Yes, it's the same from the business world. Your system is perfectly designed to give you what you're getting. And what that means is whether it's a business, a family, anything, a country, whatever the product is you're turning out, that's what your system's designed to give. So even if you go, well, people don't like my business, you realize I have to change the business then, because if this is the product, the way I'm doing things is producing, that's what it's designed to do, even if I didn't intend it to be that way. Well, we see in the educational system, so many naive Americans, think, oh, this system is just failing. It's just, it's just not working. They don't even know how to read hardly and write. They don't know how to do math. And we got to just change some things. But what I say to them, because it's the truth, and I know a lot of well-meaning people are trying to do things there, but I'm telling them the system is perfectly designed to give us what we're getting. Mm-hmm. They wanted what we're getting, just like that communist goal I read. They wanted to dumb down the curriculum. They wanted to get control of teachers' associations. They wanted to turn the children into dumbed down activists. Why? Because a dumbed down person that doesn't have the character or morality to be in control of themselves is going to need big government. They're going to always vote for whoever demands the most government because they need it. They literally can't get up at 6 a.m. to go to work every morning. They're just too tired, or I can hear the alarm. They'll always have a good excuse. So they wanted that kind of citizen that will be prone to be dependent on the system so you can use them very easily. But also it's then focusing all the energies of their life into accomplishing something they want to have accomplished, the environmental movement or the Black Lives Matter movement or whatever it might be that always sounds good. They always manipulate the words to make you think, well, this is a noble and just cause. Who's not for Black lives? Well, of course I'm for Black lives. But unfortunately, all the Marxist groups, and I've studied hundreds of them over the last many, many years, their stated name or purpose is always the exact opposite of what they're actually trying to accomplish. One example of this, because it's so bold, is one of the communist groups I was studying as a group out of Chicago. And I thought, oh, this is just a case in point for how they manipulate words to deceive us. The name of the group is called the Committee to Defend the Bill of Rights. Oh. It is a communist organization out of Chicago, only there for one reason, to make sure we lose all of our Bill of Rights so that we can institute a totalitarian government here. So that's just one example, but the whole environmental movement is another one, saving the planet. Their policies are destroying the planet. It's actually hurting what is green, because what is green loves CO2, and they're there to cut CO2. And when we know we need more CO2 for plant growth to really thrive, like that's why they put it into the greenhouses like they do, because they realize, no, the more CO2, the better for everything that is green. And yet they call themselves the green movement when they're cutting carbon dioxide.
It's evil and demonic, but they are brilliant at making things sound good. How many bills has the left pushed that have good sounding names to them, or titles to the bill or the legislation? Who wouldn't want to protect the environment, or who wouldn't want to protect children, or who wouldn't be for women's rights, or whatever else? Go on down the list. And
Yes.
we're going to run out of time quickly, Curtis, but your subtitle of Agenda, the first documentary, Grinding America Down. If I remember right, is that that sounds like Antonio Gramsci and wanting to grind down America and get in and infiltrate the major institutions? Is that the idea there? And they've been very successful at it, by the way.
Yes, yeah. He said back in the 1930s, he said, if you want to take over a Judeo-Christian country, a country that has foundations believing in God, you can't use the Marxist revolution because they believe thou shalt not kill. They're not going to just kill each other off. So he said, what you have to do is take over all the institutions of influence and use those to change the people from within. So you take over education and media and entertainment, Hollywood, and on, and you use those things then to slowly manipulate the people into believing America is the most evil country that's ever existed. Capitalism is the most unjust system ever invented, and on where it attacks all the foundation stones, so then it will simply collapse on itself. Mao, real quickly, I know we're running out of time, but when he took over China with the Cultural Revolution, he said we have to get rid of the four olds: the old culture, the old ideology, the old customs, and the old traditions. And that's exactly what they've done in America.
Wow. And it is astounding to you and I, people that are informed and have been researching and writing about this for years, speaking about this, how much success the left has had. And I guess that's for another podcast, because I wanted to ask you, because it's been going on for a long time, but we did run out of time. So Grinding America Down, Agenda, where can people watch the two documentaries?
If you go to Amazon, you can rent them or buy them there. That's probably the most convenient. Or you can go to agendaweekly.com if you'd like a physical copy of it.
Curtis, thank you. I know you're trying to sound the alarm to churches to get Christians to wake up. I know we've had a problem with apathy in the church, and pastors need to wake up, pastors that actually need to be teaching the whole counsel of God, addressing Bible prophecy and the evil, confronting evil, exposing deeds of darkness. Thank you for all that you do. Lord willing, we'll continue this conversation down the road, but thanks again for being part of Worldview Matters. God bless you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate you, David.
All right. Thank you. And by the way, we talked about the pastors conference there, Liberty Pastors, and you can get that whole presentation that Curtis gave there just a week or so ago. It's on Rumble. Look up Liberty Pastors with no space in between, and you can watch Curtis Bowers' The Marxist Communist Attack on America, and also, of course, check out agendaweekly.com. Another colleague of ours was at that conference, Alex Newman. He wrote the book Indoctrinating Our Children to Death, so check that out as well. Thank you for your time, friends, and for sharing the podcast. God bless you, and as always, keep speaking the truth about things that matter.